welcome anybody who's watching on Facebook, and we've got a really exciting start to the year. It's been a very strange start to the year, not the one we anticipated, but we're all together again. That's good anyway. So this month, we're looking at strategic approaches to student accessibility engagement, which is a big mouthful when you haven't got your teeth in. Okay, basically how we all taught, how we're going to connect with kids, with the students. So I'm going to start with obviously introducing ourselves. We've got a lot of familiar faces, but a lot of new people who haven't been with us before. So I just wanted to say welcome to the Global School Alliance, which is a fantastic community. I cannot stress how wonderfully warm the people in this community are. And it is a community, all supportive, with all common visions. And that is the whole point of why we're doing this and why we're all here. So the main goals of the Community Alliance and these conferences is obviously to look at learning experiences around the world, to unite us, to a way of sharing activities. And I think the biggest thing about this community is the support. We are trying to look at cultural diversity awareness, raising global citizens and sharing what we've got with everybody and supporting each other while we're doing it, which are fantastic goals, and everybody is so encouraging here. It's great. So our plan to do that is providing a place to do that. We're working on new platforms, which I'm going to let James introduce in a minute. It's sharing ideas, it's facilitating experiences for the students more than anything. In the future, when we can travel, hopefully we can all visit each other all over the world, which I'm really looking forward to, physically getting there to see you. But in the meantime, we're going to try and provide as many experiences as close to being there as possible for the poor pupils who are stuck at home. Which is where all the e-learning and online learning is coming from. So to join us, there are a few different ways. We have people who are members, which are mainly the school group. So as a school, you can join the school as a member. You can join as an ambassador, as an individual, and Ambassadors Pros is a bit more when you engage with us a little bit more, and you can find out more about that if you ask us. We have our own Facebook group, and welcome everybody if anyone's there watching us live on the Facebook group. Again, that's a great way we can communicate with each other. We can share ideas. Another way you can speak to the speakers who have been on this conference and previous conferences. They're sharing their experiences on there too. And our new platform, Learning Unleashed, which is going to be live very soon. And I'm going to actually ask my colleague James, who is the latest member of our team. Welcome, James, to the team as well. If you'd like to explain, unmute yourself and explain a bit more about our exciting Learning Unleashed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening or early morning, wherever you are. Welcome. We're so pleased. I've been very excited for this virtual conference this afternoon. We are launching a brand new platform, which will be called the Global Schools Learning Unleashed platform. And it will be launched this time next month, February the 25th of February. So the new platform will do lots of things. It will initiate joint projects with global schools and joint school partnerships. So you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to communicate with your peers around the world and take part in action research projects. You'll be able to access e-learning courses and hopefully micro degrees as well. And very exciting, you'll be able to access and publish education articles and research in our new area called the faculty. Now, to launch the new platform, we have a special guest keynote speaker next month who is very well known. His name is Professor Stephen Heppel, and he will be launching our new platform with us, and also he's the keynote speaker. So please come next month as well, Thursday the 25th of February, same time, 4 p.m. Thanks very much, Tony.
Thank you very much, James. Very well done. That's fantastic. So I don't really want to take up much more time. Or can I say to everyone, if you've got questions for our wonderful speakers, because I'm going to hand over to them very soon, put them in the chat. We'll monitor and collate all the questions and hopefully do it towards the end. One or two of the speakers might have to leave. So if we have time, we'll sort of do a few questions for them after their actual speaking, in case they have to disappear. But we'll try and also get more engagement at the end if you've got some burning desires to answer and talk about, communicate with each other. But we will be sharing the recording of this, and the conversations can carry on our Facebook Live afterwards as well. So it's not the end just because we have to leave this evening. So I say the first person, Mal Gorjata, has very kindly said I can call her Gorshi because I knew I'd get a mistake with her name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Gorshi. If you could kick off the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello to you all. I'm very glad to be here among all the experts. Let me just share my screen. And let's start with it. Right, okay, so my name is Małgorzata, Gosia for short. And as most of us gathered here today, I'm a teacher. I teach English to teenagers and adults in Poland, in a high school, which is a mixture of a general high school, a technical college, and a vocational school. But apart from being a regular school teacher, I help students and educators develop their digital competence, which is my professional passion, by showing how to incorporate it into the learning process, learning and teaching process. And then I write about it in online publications, in some while creating some educational resources. And in my free time, I cooperate with educational organizations such as Global School Alliance, where I have the role of an ambassador. So I was invited here to share a point of view of a teacher and give some thoughts on the subject of some aspects, actually, of this distant learning. So I will just start by describing what we've gone through in Poland so far, because it's still happening, right? We are still using this model of teaching. So the first time that we experienced it was in the spring. So that's why I called it the spring model. The lockdown in Poland began in mid-March, and at that time, all the groups associated with educating had to get prepared straight away. Like in the blink of an eye, the student had to be equipped. The teachers had to get fluent in the use of technology to do their job. And the parents had to be able to support, to manage all the other aspects of learning from home. So basically, in that difficult time, in that difficult beginning, the first source of contact was either a sort of a online school platform or the hybrid model. And I believe that we've all experienced the hybrid teaching model, so I will not talk about it, but this online school platform type, this is what I would like to concentrate while addressing this topic of students' accessibility, right? So basically, the online school platform was a type of an online register book with some functions added to it. And all we could do was to prepare sets of materials and send them via the platform and hope that our students got them and processed them. Quite a lot of wishful thinking, actually, back then. All the time we had to remember about the fact that our students were not properly equipped. Some of them didn't have either the devices or the peripherals they needed for efficient learning. What we did, how we supported each other, was researching the internet for some external links to pages or some other platforms where we could give our lessons more quality, more essence. Quite a lot of job actually we did back then. All the research, all the self-education in a very quick time. So even though it was hard, it had quite a good outcome actually. As I said, we had to analyze constantly the students' accessibility. So we had to check with the students, with the parents, if they have equipment, if they had internet access. We had to check monitor the progress, which was actually not what we expected at that time. We had to work slow. We had to be 100% tolerant for any case of trouble, like absence or any misfortunes in while sending back the assignments, or not sending them at all, or for example photos sent backwards and Miss, can you help me how to do it? I don't know where to find the file. I don't know how to send it. And all the, troubleshooting was done here by us. So the spring was a really good lesson for all of us, a real challenge, I'd say. But then, fortunately, the situation changed after the holidays. The schools were reopened for a moment, but that moment gave us the chance to prepare for we suspected would come. So we were able to get courses on the use of the chosen world-leading educational platform. And from that moment, since now, it's been going far more better. We have lessons in real time. We can explain. We can not always see the students because the cameras are not obligatory actually, but the microphones are. So we can hear, at least we can hear them. We can communicate, right? Because this is what was missing so much. We were missing communication so much in spring. What is writing? Writing to each other is like, almost nothing. And also the students can inform us now of any difficulties they are experiencing, right? Now, if there should it happen that someone still has problems with the equipment, some technical issues here, the students have the chance to receive school packages in paper form. So materials prepared for the lessons for the whole week, but I must admit that the percentage of the students who use this model is close to none. And then here, at this point, I should point out the role of the parents. I will talk about the parents a little bit later, but still, the parents were those people who unexpectedly became a truly crucial component of this whole distant learning process. It was their task to accessorize the kids. It was their job to manage all the aspects, not only accessibility. I'm sure that all of us who are parents have experienced all sorts of feelings while helping our kids in this find themselves in this new situation. Okay, but now I must say, I dare say, we feel more professional, we feel more comfortable, and this is actually what we were dreaming of, right, back in spring. So we've been teaching online for a couple of months now, and there is a problem which started to grow and which we started to notice, and that is the students' motivation. In the environment different from the classroom, without us walking around, giving tips, building the proper atmosphere in the group, the attention span of the students shrank. We started, losing them. Of course, apart from those who have been lost since the very beginning, but we could see that we needed something to keep our students motivated, and the discussion arose. How to do it online? How can you motivate somebody whom you can't interact with properly, or you can't even see them? And here, the subject was covered in a recent publication by Professor Jacek Pyżalski, a professor from Poland, in his latest online book. And I would like to show you the graphics he used to show the 9 factors of keeping the students with us. Of course, we will not have time to discuss all of them now, and I'm pretty sure that the book has not been yet translated into English, but I really recommend this book to all the Polish teachers who are here today with us to read it. It's a very valuable thing. So the first thing which probably crossed our minds when we were thinking about motivating the students were the use of digital tools. So we probably thought that if we equip the students with high quality materials, some gamification tools, ready-made exercises, it will keep them awake, right? It will keep them working, and it did. Well, we must say it did, but it's true only to some extent. Digital tools have this disadvantage that they become boring, right, quite fast. So this solution made the teachers do constant research of the internet resources and find something new, something better. It's a good way of conducting lessons. It's a good help in lessons, but not the only one, right? And now I'd like you to have a look at the very bottom of this iceberg, student engagement, right? This is also crucial, but so difficult to reach while while teaching online. Let me give you a few examples which I find quite appropriate in here. They are quite easy, actually. First of them will be to build relations. Relations is, I think, the most needed thing that we are experiencing now. We need relations. We need to show that we are together, that we share, the same stories right now. So it's good if we build this atmosphere of tolerance, of understanding, this friendly environment. And the simple solution here is appreciation. Wise people say that every person likes to be appreciated, right? So why not doing that? We can appreciate the effort, not only the outcome, right? Appreciate the courage to speak in public, and praise a good answer. For example, there are some platforms who offer virtual badges. This is not only for the kids. This is not only a good idea for the kids. Also, teens like it. When they get a badge, they laugh at it, of course, but it's something positive, right? Right, showing our approval by applause, or giving this heart emoticon or whatsoever. Just it all shows that we care, right? And this is what is really important. Again, when we build feedback, remember about this model: 2 positive and 1 negative, right? And our negative should be always behavior oriented, not a you, but the behavior, right? And always in private. That's, of course, everyone knows about it. But sometimes during the online lesson, when we consider the emotions, when we are having a really hard time, it happens that we, say what we weren't supposed to say. So we criticize. We sometimes happen to say some really negative things to our students in public, which makes their motivation go down to the sea level, right? Okay, and here some more examples of engaging students. Actually, the word engagement is a constituent of this 3E thing: engage, encourage, and enable production. Now, what is engaging? For me, and I believe for most of the teachers, engaging is incorporating into the process. Distant learning gave us this opportunity to use the internet resources straight away. So we can ask the students to prepare part of the lesson for us. I believe that especially younger learners will feel really excited about it. They could be a teacher for a moment. We could ask the student to supervise a reading or a listening exercise. Why not? They could help us. They can feel important. We could ask them to suggest how we can go through another chapter in the course book. Let them feel they are a part of this whole process. and encouraging. For me, it means a little bit of moving the students out of their safety zone. We can't go too far because we are all in our houses, but just consider this: if we introduce them, if we teach them to use a program, and I mean the internet program, for making mind-blowing notes and sketches, something very different from what they got used to in a regular school, not writing on paper, but use something and prepare something really fantastic. Or if we show them how to produce graphics, picturing some aspects of the matter we are teaching. And if we allow them to share their materials, just imagine how they might feel. It's so uplifting. For example, if all the group is using my notes, which I made by myself in Canva, for example, or Wakelet, which is fantastic for storing all the data, all the information. And here we have an enabling production, which is actually my favorite. Building this creation-friendly environment online is pretty difficult, but it's doable. We can make it happen. Allow creation, photo sharing, paperwork, even some singing, physical exercises. Let me give you an example of a good practice which I've come across recently. The teacher, this is for young learners, the teacher asked them to prepare a set of crayons. And in the beginning of the lessons, she gave them clear and short instructions. Go and put the yellow crayon in the kitchen. Go to your bathroom and put the blue crayon there, and so on and so forth. And then the lesson started. And after some time, at some point, the teacher said, okay, now, are you all listening to me? Yes, we are listening to you. Now, stand up. Go get your yellow crayon. Go. Right? So what the kids had to do, they had to wake up, they had to stand up, and they had to run and remember where they put the crayon. Of course, there were some who forgot to turn the microphones off, as it always happened. So the teacher could hear, Mama, where did I put the yellow crayon? Mama, where's my blue crayon? Right? So it was all like, it was a fun activity, but still learning. They were learning English. They were following instructions. They were moving. It was something engaging. It was something different. Another idea for older students would be to ask them to take a photo of their desk. When we are talking about school, learning, rooms, character even, take the photo of your desk, but don't clean it without hiding anything. Just take a photo of the way it looks like now. Sorry. And then share it in some collaborative space we're using. So, well, of course, the first exercise, the first activity which comes into mind is describing what we can see. But again, let's play the guessing game. Whose desk is it, and why? Why do you think so, right? Which gadgets, or maybe they remember the phones. You know that their mobile phones are always next to our right hand. So maybe the students will remember that. Maybe maybe they know that some of their peers is a Star Wars fan and they can see the Darth Vader somewhere, on the wall. This is it. Another activity which I like to use with my students when I revise quantifiers is to ask them to produce a magazine cover. Canva and Genially are the programs which give fantastic templates to do it. So the group task is to make up headings for the cover, and put in every heading they had to put at least one quantifier. And it's fun because they are choosing the graphics, they're choosing the photos, and they are thinking about the content. So we have like less sugar, less fat, or more pizza is wrong for your body. Whatever they come up with, it doesn't matter actually, right? They are still working, they are revising, they are learning, they are working together, cooperating. And the moment they share their covers already made, we can sort of extend the lesson into a mini project, write an article to the chosen heading, make it short, make it longer, whatever. But this creation is what can help us all survive, right? And actually in quite a good shape, I think, right? Okay, what I would like to move on to now is, yes, the parents. Well, as I said in the beginning, the parents, whether they liked it or not, they became incorporated in the educating system. Their help to keep this new situation working is indisputable. But this new relation may provoke some tensions. So we, the teacher, can experience some rough talks from time to time, some hard feelings, and maybe some unfulfilled expectations. The parents are overloaded, so the emotions also, have their way. But despite this difficult situation we are all in, we actually tend to act smart. We know what to do. We show respect for the parents' contribution, right? Thank you for buying your daughter this new microphone. It really helps me to communicate with her. It's so much better right now. We invite the parents to take part in some online personal meetings for some explanation, right? For discussion. Of course, we have to remember about digital illiteracy here and adjust the methods of contact, especially with older parents who are not accustomed to use internet as the source of communication. Sometimes my reflection is that sometimes when it gets really rough, we tend to forget how important and how valuable we are for our students. And for the purpose of this meeting, I asked one of my groups, late teens, to form a word cloud in Mentimeter and to ask only one question. What are the roles of a teacher? And now I'd like to show you the result. Just have a look. Some of them are pretty straightforward. We have organized, specialist, motivator. But if we look closer, look, a nurse. How often, especially when you teach in a primary school, how often we are nurses? A librarian, dietitian. This was funny actually. Dietitian. I caught myself on that. I used to tell my students, girls especially, why did you come to school without eating breakfast? You know how important breakfast is for you, right? Or stop drinking this energy drink. No matter you're 18, it's bad for your body, right? So a dietitian. And here we also had a therapist. Look, aren't we therapists for the kids? We are, of course. And the last one, which I really liked, the judge. This is something, right? So you see, we have to keep in mind that even though students, especially teens, they don't tend to show their emotions and feelings. They are rather, well, they wouldn't like to be engaged, and they are to anything that you say or suggest. I would really recommend you to try do this exercise with your students, and then you will see. These will all my 18-year-old's ideas. Well, quite uplifting, isn't it? And then just for the end, to sum up, remember that student well-being depends on teacher well-being. That's true. So I really wish you all you have the strength to respect your needs, admit your weaknesses, and tackle your fears. Once we're good to ourselves, the world is a little bit brighter, and maybe it will be smoother for us to go through the distant learning and back to school, to our beloved classrooms and students. Thank you.
the usual mistake of being muted. Thank you so much, Gosha. That was really helpful. I will actually think if we have to take a couple of minutes at the end of each one to ask questions that were relevant at the time. We only had a couple of questions in there, but I know Diana was asking about how many hours per day live you think. So we've had some answers already in the chat. But Gosha, how many hours live Zooming did you do as teaching?
Zooming? No,
Yeah.
I'm a Teams person.
Or any live lessons they meant, engagement with the students live.
Well, how many hours you asked?
Per day.
Since the beginning, well, I must think. In the autumn, we started online teaching, like it was in the mid-October. And since then, every day, like from 5 to 8 lessons daily.
So the normal hourly hours as if they were in school are all live then?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, when I turn on the Teams in the morning, I just turn it off like a couple of minutes past 3.
Wow. Thank you. That's great. And then one other question was actually about assessments. They were talking about, I think it was Ksenia. I'm not, apologize if I pronounced that wrong. It was about online tools for assessment for the students, for summative assessment and formative assessment. Are there any tools you recommend for that as they go along? There were one or two mentioned already. Yes,
I know that quite a number of teachers use the tools provided by Teams, some built into the Teams, but I actually use the software which I am not quite sure actually has an English version. It's a Polish software. I just skipped through the questions here, and I can see maybe it's not the question, but please share all the software you mentioned. Of course I will, and actually I don't know, you tell me whether I should write it now on the chat or the links, or wait until the end of our meeting. What will be better? Of course I will share. I'm a share person, so I will share
thank you very much. Thanks, Gosha. Yes, I think you've mentioned them, so we can, on the recording, people can always search for them afterwards. If you want to upload them to the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I'll just upload. I'll add the names on the chat in the meantime before the next speaker starts.
Wonderful. So we have Sue next, I think, as well. Actually, Sue, will we lined up ready to share the screen? Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, Gosha, and welcome, Sue.
Right, can you all see my slides? I've got a thumbs up, that will do. Go to the next. Bear with me, I've got a slight technical hitch here. Oh. Okay, I'm happy, it's all working. Right, hello everyone, and it's a real privilege to be able to speak to all of you, and how exciting to see how much of the globe all of us are actually covering, and what a fantastic sense of global community of educators. So I'm the head of Lichfield Cathedral School, and I've been lucky enough to sort of end up with a bit of I suppose a media voice in terms of education commentary, and I'm very grateful for that. So just by way of background, because it's actually not irrelevant to the way in which I've framed this, the school that I work at is in a beautiful environment. We're very, very lucky. We are a cathedral school, so we do have a faith basis, but one of the complicating factors for us was that we do have children from the age of 2.5 to 18. So given that the government in our country was sort of making lots of changes to education for different age groups all the time, every single change that was made applied to us because we had every age of child in education in the school. We also have a complication of being split across 2 separate sites. One is in the medieval Cathedral Close, and the other one is in about 10 minutes drive away, where we have the younger children. We are a choir school. This also makes us quite a specialist school for singers, So here are a couple of our choristers that you can see in the picture, and they sing regularly. There's girls and boys in the choir. They sing regularly in the cathedral and are professional singers by the age of 13. So they do a huge amount of singing. Singing has also been a massive problem, of course, during the pandemic, and that's been real sorrow to our hearts in many respects, because a big part of a number of our children's lives is that they sing. And you know, and I guess like all children, you remove the things that bring joy, and that doesn't help their well-being. The reason I wanted to put this context in is because if the last 12 months has been about anything, it has been about reinvention and evolution for all of us, but at a rapid pace. And I work in the context of a school that has done a lot of evolving itself anyway in recent years. So the school with its secondary phase, the older children, has only been in place since 1942. So we have quite a special birthday next year when we're 80. We only had girls in the school from 1974. We took on the junior school in 2016. We've had a big fire that took out some of our buildings in 2012. But in 2012, we also managed to get girls in the choir in the cathedral for the first time in 700 years. So hooray, really, for that. That was a really special moment for all of us. So our evolution has taken place over centuries, although quite a lot, I suppose, in the last 80 years. Interestingly, in January of last year, we decided to have a visioning day with our governing body to look at what the next phase of the school's evolution should be. And of course, what we didn't realise was that as we sat there planning the future, we were really sitting on a railway track with a slow train coming in the form of the pandemic, and like we all were, with no idea of it. But it was quite interesting that the focus that I took for our evolution was straight from Charles Darwin and the evolution of the species, and was that, you know, in all matters, our approach will be agile and adaptable. It needs to be evolutionary. If we're going to meet the needs of children, you know, the workplace of the future, then our education has got to be fit for purpose. And it's a conversation for another day, but for those of you that have read the January 2020 Future Education Report from the World Economic Forum, you will realise how prescient that was. And I was hugely influenced by that in the work that we were doing back in January, but frankly, hadn't got a clue what was coming next. So here we go. The pandemic hits, and where does it leave us? Well, we've already heard from Gorsha that, you know, there had to be a really rapid turnaround in terms of our response. But the reality about where we were at that moment in time was that we were pretty ill-equipped to turn immediately to an online provision. Our staff were not sufficiently trained to suddenly turn their practice from being in the classroom to online. We didn't have the resources in school or indeed at home in the quantity that we needed. And there was a need, and I'm sure for any of you who have been working in schools through this, and particularly to those of you that have any leadership responsibility, you absolutely suddenly needed to sort of, I don't know, grab every bit of strength and wisdom you'd got and pull it together and lead through uncharted waters. And there is something, you know, slightly terrifying, but equally exhilarating, I think, about that. It's also, I think, and looking at more whole school and the wider school communities, you are managing expectations of all sorts of people. So I teach as well as being the head, you know, the expectations of my pupils, the expectations of the parents, the governors, colleagues, how we work together in departments. It was a lot to do in a very short space of time. So herein lies for me the moment where the penny dropped and I realised we'd got a problem. So in February half term, we had sent a group of children skiing. They'd actually gone skiing, not in Italy, but their journey home brought them back through Milan airport. And I don't know if you remember what a most horrendous and heartbreaking situation Italy found itself in very, very early on. And suddenly everyone that had been on that trip was not allowed into school. And in fact, people were sent out to their houses there was a government response was to send people to their houses to do testing in full-on PPE, which was such a shock. You know, we'd been on a ski trip. This was not what we were expecting to come back to. So already straight away after half term in February, we were having to do blended learning, because I had about 13 teachers who were not in school, and all of the children that had been on the trip were not in either. So we were having to try and manage that quite quickly. Now, as Gorsha said, our immediate response for that was to send paper packages of work home, because it was just, I suppose, the quickest and at that time the easiest way of doing it. I don't think that anymore. I think this is much easier, but it's taken us nearly a year to get to this point, hasn't it? What happened then over the next few weeks, as I'm sure many of you will have experienced, is that every single day, although schools were still open, we had varying numbers of teachers and children out. So day by day, we were having to re-timetable and cover lessons and work out who we were sending work home, etc. And it became incredibly difficult, I think, for everyone that was in school, but also for the people who were trying to work from home. So how do we make this new, brave new world of education accessible to all of our students? Well, I was going to put practice makes perfect, and then I realised that's just not true in this case. We're not perfect yet. We're still learning, I think. And our immediate concerns were, how on earth do we do this in a way that we know the children will learn? How are they going to access it? And actually, how do we quality assure what's being delivered? Because whereas ordinarily we can, you know, walk around a school and we can sense, we can see what's being, you know, delivered in classrooms, you can measure the learning relatively easily. You know, you can use a litmus paper very quickly. I could walk all the corridors of my school and get a sense of what was going on. But when people are teaching from, you know, 100 different households, and they're teaching into 500 different households, how do you know that what's being delivered is good enough? And really, as educators, I think that matters to us very much. Now, you hear what Gorsha has to say about, you know, the sheer brain power that goes into every variety of teaching that you can think of, every resource that's available. And we know that these things matter, and we know that they make a difference. But you have to rely on everybody being that dedicated and that committed, and actually savvy enough, having the understanding and the learning themselves to know where to look for these things. So there is, I think, the training need for all the staff in the school, perhaps other than the IT department, was huge. And then, of course, there are the issues of pastoral concern, and we all have children in our schools that we know we have concerns about, even when they're in school every day, let alone when they're at home. A friend of mine who's a deputy head in a school for children with significant disability had to do home visits because they had children who were very vulnerable indeed, and you know, her life effectively changed from teaching in a classroom to traveling around quite a wide geographical area, looking through windows, and she wasn't allowed to go into the houses, but just making sure the children were okay. So when we go back to that you know, that infographic that Gorsha put together about what is a teacher, I think the variety on there probably is also a tip of an iceberg, because I think many of us have had to do all sorts of things that we would not have done previously. So there's a problem when we're suddenly told to close the school. For all of us, it's a problem. But the context is that we've been doing blended learning for a while by the time this directive comes. And to be honest with you, it was a bit of a blessing to just have a definitive decision. Of course, we still had all of our critical worker children in, so there was still an element of blended learning, but it was reasonably easier to manage that than not knowing day by day. So here I'm going to challenge Darwin a bit. Here he is, Charles Darwin, and I'm going to say that actually what we didn't do was evolve. What we had to do was overnight reinvent. Yeah, it was far sharper response required than evolution. But it's interesting, isn't it, that he tells us it's not the strongest that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. This could not be more fitting, I don't think, for what we're talking about here. And this, to some extent, is where all the pressures, I think, have come from on all of us as educators, because this has had to be a knee-jerk reaction, but one that also carried quality with it. And the two things would rarely be put together. So by the 20th of March, all the schools had closed in the UK for in-person teaching, other than these vulnerable children and those of key workers. And I was heartbroken to see the school close. I have to say, I don't know about the rest of you, but there is an emotional connection to a school you work in and the children you teach. And watching them walk away for that on that final day and not really knowing when any of them would be coming back, it was hard. And I think, you know, if you teach with your heart and your head, this has not just been challenging to learn the IT, it's been challenging on a human level too. So we did as Gorsha did, we sent work packs home. We also set up triage of calls to all parents across every single child and all teachers on a weekly basis to offer pastoral support. So we effectively created telephone trees. So everybody was phoning one or two other people, and then it was all being fed back through Microsoft Teams. We had real problems legally completing our school registers every day. That was so complicated, and I ended up having to have one member of my leadership team literally spending half of every day just getting the registers sorted out. I will never forget the staff meeting that we called to say that school was closing, that I needed everyone to just get teaching from home, the look of terror on everybody's face. But isn't it amazing what we can achieve when we put our minds to it? We had, I was so blessed to say that we had a young boy working for us who was an IT apprentice. He was just coming to the end of his apprenticeship, and he trained all the teachers. It was this most wonderful moment of the youngster teaching all these, you know, all of us oldies how to do something that we really needed to know how to do. So, and the other thing that for me was incredibly hard is that, of course, all schools had children who were coming to the end of their formal school education. They were heading towards their final exams, instead of which they had to just up and go. So we did a final assembly, and we had to beam in the school chaplain because he was isolating by that point. And I have the heightened emotion in the room of these youngsters for whom their rite of passage of leaving school had changed. Was something I think personally I will never forget. That goodbye to the upper sixth was heartbreaking, really. So I think we all needed to do two things. We just needed to keep the children safe where we could, but of course we didn't have the same level of control, and we had to keep them learning. And our IT manager at school, I mean, I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek as a joke really, but he was like the fourth emergency service, because all of the parents who were struggling with IT were trying to phone him. All of the teachers who were struggling with IT were trying to phone him. And he just was amazing, and remains everybody's go-to person, and was delivering parts of computers to houses, delivering every school, every laptop, and where we've got microphones or iPads, he literally drove around the area delivering all this stuff out. So he did an amazing job. So this is very much to do with the practicalities, I think, initially of what we were doing. We also legally had to have a COVID coordinator. So goodbye marketing director, hello COVID coordinator. She's still doing that role. I don't think she loves it, but she's doing a very good job. And she deals with all the updates that come in every day. And of course, we've had to set up testing centres for COVID in UK schools as well, although they're not all up and running yet. The health and safety issues, obviously everybody had to be trained in. I'm sure many of you have gone through a lot of that training too. And we had to close a number of our buildings to try and reduce our costs. Creating the bubbles of children within year groups wasn't as easy as it might have been, and it certainly didn't work for any of our choirs because they're all multi-age. And the furlough in the UK, because we're an independent school and our funding is through parents, we're actually a charity, so some of our funding comes through from the cathedral. We had to furlough over half of our staff, so we had to teach every lesson with half the number of teachers, and that was actually excruciating. It was horrific, and I don't know how we all did it, but we did, and we've done it differently this time because I think we just pushed it a bit too far. It was difficult to continue to work. I mean, I've mentioned some of this already. There was a lot of nervousness by some people, some teachers around the online teaching, totally understandably. And actually some of the advice from the unions, the teachers' unions at the beginning, was not particularly supportive of the online teaching. I know Gorsha mentioned about children having their cameras on or off. It's so much easier. Luckily, I teach only sixth form at the moment, and they're all happy to put their cameras on, and I feel like I'm really meeting with them and teaching them. I know other colleagues, here's a top tip, I don't know whether it will work for you, who've done things like bring your favourite mug or cup to your English lesson, and everyone, you know, and then suddenly everyone's cameras are on because they've got a Scooby-Doo cup or something like that. So I think there are some little gimmicky things that can actually help, or, you know, show us your pet, a photo of your pet, or something like that. I think all of this has got a lot easier as time has gone on. We also were muddling through how places of worship would continue to work. Now, in terms of the IT platforms that we used, our discomfort zone really saw us using Seesaw for the junior school, and I don't know how many of you have used this platform, but, you know, whilst it definitely works and we are still using it exclusively proved to be really cumbersome for the teachers that were doing it, because the amount of feedback they were getting in terms of messaging from parents and pupils, I mean, it was just hundreds of messages a day, and I think teachers were feeling pretty overwhelmed. Luckily, I was using Teams as I teach the seniors, and we have found that to be really, really, really effective. It's quite unusual for me to be using Zoom today, but Teams I have got my head around now, I think. Then we had, you know, various year groups being allowed back. So in terms of this evolution or reinvention, we'd got at one point all of our junior school back and only part of our senior school for only 2 days a week, and that had gradually changed over time. So it was just this constant process really of having to replan from the ground up. With regard to the student engagement, we are blessed, I think, with really generally supportive parents. They are on board with what we're doing. I think the difficulty for them has been that on the whole, they are not teachers, and many of them are also trying to do full-time jobs from home whilst trying to teach children. We see a lot of this in the media, of the struggles that people are having trying to keep their own children engaged at home. I think most of them has realised there's no fun in it. They don't really like doing it. We had some parents who were saying to us, well, you're an independent school, you can do what you like, so my child's coming in tomorrow. We had to try and convince them why that was not indeed the case. There is no doubt, I think, with this use of technology for teaching, that variety is, as ever, the spice of life. You know, the more you can breed variety into the week for the children, the better. But that does assume a breadth of skills of the people who are delivering it. So there was always going to be a lag, I think, between us being able to offer a wider diet in terms of delivery and making sure everybody was trained up enough to do it. We absolutely believe that the best mix is to have live interaction at some point in the week, even for this. We were really reluctant to do this with our very, very young children, and I don't know how many of you I'm speaking to who teach very small children, but, you know, the thought of delivering something live to a reception or a pre-reception class, are they really going to sit and listen? We didn't think they would, but actually, as a teacher, if you're reading a story to your children at the end of every day, they do love it, and they especially love it if you can do it in a way where they're linking with other people in their class. So maybe they send messages in and you read the messages out, and they start to feel like more of a community again. The pre-recorded videos are also being used every day still, along with the live lessons, and we've also realise that actually being in front of a screen all day, every day, as we all know, is not a good thing. So you've got to feed in to putting some well-being activities. We're looking at I was speaking to a friend who's heading at a different school, and they're doing a fun Friday where I think it's tomorrow, where they're just nothing that's being delivered tomorrow has anything to do with screens or IT. So they're having a complete IT detox for the day, but they've provided activities that are more to do with, you know, foraging and going out hunting for things in the garden, and sounds brilliant, frankly. I think we need that sort of variety. So how else have we kept our children enthused? Competitions have been brilliant. Just even small sorts of competitions. The junior school have been particularly good at this, whether it be, you know, art, or whether it be poetry or a collage with nature, or whatever it might be. Gorsha's already talked about rewards. I totally agree with you, and I totally agree with you that even the oldest students actually really like a little sticker on their book. They pretend like they don't, and they are making fun of it, but in a way that means they're actually really chuffed. So I think, and actually teachers too, we all need a bit of rewarding at the moment because we're working our socks off. It's really important that you can, wherever possible, get that real-time interaction between the teachers and the children they teach, but also between children and other children. So we did some work with the pastoral team, pulling together like small chat groups of maybe 5 children at a time for 15 minutes, you know, and just focusing in on small groups, so they get to share ideas, they get to see each other, they just get to have a bit of a laugh and feel like children again. Pen pal letters is something else that's worked, and wouldn't that be wonderful if we could all start doing that globally a bit more again? That would be great, but at the moment we're doing it in between our own classmates. Online art gallery. This is a great idea in terms of not just giving the children a purpose in doing some artwork, but actually pulling your whole community together in that sense of school community cohesion, because that can easily be shared. The messaging, this I'm quite keen on flagging up. If I just briefly say, our junior pupils on the whole, with their welfare, were kind of okay. The feedback we've had and continue to get is that mostly they're doing okay. They got back into school earlier in the year, and I think that was critical for them. With some of our senior pupils, the strain is beginning to show now, and I think this is where our focus as educators needs to be, on these older pupils who are getting increasingly anxious, particularly the ones who would have been doing exams, for example, in the next few months. One of the worst things I think we can say to any of these children are the words rescue curriculum or recovery curriculum, because implicit in that is the fact that they are in a bad place. And that's not going to help anyone. It's not going to help us, and it's not going to help them. I think the language that we use is so important, and it has to be about positivity, because ultimately every child of a certain age in a certain country will be judged in the same way in terms of their academic ability, and it will be done in a way that is fair given the context. So they just need to understand that they are getting the best they can get. You know, you're giving them the best you can give, and they need to have the belief in what is being delivered. And I think there's a lot of risk in saying it. There's a lot of, you know, if we keep saying recovery is needed, and then we keep having time out of school, it just further embeds their fear that they're behind. With regards briefly then to the parents, we know that communication is the key thing. We sent home, I wrote 2 letters, effectively articles a week, that went home to parents. I sent video messages, so did some of the other teachers. Tutors made weekly calls, and obviously, as I mentioned before, we offered IT provision. Now, we are in a brave new world, and our new normal, you know, it does feel normal now, and I think that's why so many of us are more adept at delivering to children at home than we were previously. Expectations, I think, from parents and children are high, but they don't feel as uncomfortable and unrealistic as they did to begin with. I think it took a bit of time for everyone to realise that really it couldn't be done overnight. And I think to a greater or lesser extent, we've all got used to the way we're having to work. What hasn't helped us here in the UK actually is the amount of U-turns we've had to deal with regard to some government decisions. And I don't say that to get political, but it has really, particularly with the way exam results last year were dealt with, it has not embedded confidence in our current senior students who are very anxious about what's going to happen to them. So I think the pressures do remain high on all of us globally. But do you know what? We're teachers. It's a superpower. We're made of sterner stuff. And I think, therefore, well-being has to be front and centre here. So how have we dealt with this? And I think this is really important. I'd be really interested to know how other people have done this. We've set up a wellbeing committee, which we have a group of teachers who sit on that and look at things that can be done to support the wellbeing of one another. There is also one of our governing body, one of the governors, who's linked to that. So at every level, you know, that there is support behind that. There are some really excellent organisations that provide wellbeing resources. And I'm particularly a fan of youngminds.org, but it's worth looking at their resources. They are fantastic. But there are others as well. We have looked at people like our special educational needs coordinator and our safeguarding lead, and put in additional, sort of given people specific duties to support them because their workload has increased. And then I rather like this, and I've stolen this from somebody I heard speaking the other day, but I thought this is really good. We talk so much in schools about excellence, but excellence is not perfection. Excellence is a state of mind which allows us to do the best we can with the hand we're dealt. And having that mindset of that doing our best is absolutely good enough, I think is really important. So here we go. This is my final point. What would Darwin say then? This hasn't really been evolution. I don't think he'd have quite believed it. But this is important. The youngsters that we teach today are the very people who have got to go out into the workplace and rebuild the world for us tomorrow. So never has our role as educators been more important than it is now. Nothing could be more important, because the fixes of the future are in our hands today. And with that, that is my final comment. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Sue. That is great. I was having a quick look at questions. There weren't a lot of questions. I know Christina has mentioned about the performances of students in the future. I don't think we're going to be able to compare them. She's asking about what about the competences of them, how we're going to compare them with students in the past. I don't know how we could address that really. So have you got any?
No, I think it's a really good point to make, and it's a very good question, and I think probably the most pragmatic response is to accept that we cannot, you know, it has got to be different. Certainly in the UK, prior to us finding out that the exams were being cancelled again this summer, we were looking at a significant amount of modification to exam syllabuses, so parts of it being removed, or being assessed in different ways, or perhaps being given having open book, or being told which parts of the syllabus were going to be on the paper this year, whereas we wouldn't normally know. So I think there will be ways around this, but I feel quite strongly about this really. Whatever we do next with these youngsters in terms of how we assess them has got to enable them to take the next step, because we need them to be able to take the next step. We need them to be able to, you know, move on to their next platform of education or work-life journey or whatever it might be. And do you know what? They will fill the gaps as they need to, but what we mustn't do is create something that is stifling them now, because this is not their fault.
Well done, thanks. So I agree, what we need is joined up thinking between future universities, future employers, to look at them in a different light. And as long as we get the joined up thinking and they appreciate the different skills that they're learning from this, it should work. But it's the
Fingers crossed.
It's the joined up thinking we have to hold our fingers for. And I think, Jonathan, have you managed to get on? We did have a few technical difficulties, but I think Jonathan is available now. Are you there, Jonathan,
Yes,
to take over?
Yes, of course.
Wonderful.
Hi, hello, everyone. I'll start with sharing my screen. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Sorry, my apologies. When I restarted my computer, I forgot to put up my presentation again. So I'm just
You're also a little bit quiet, Jonathan. I'm not sure if it is for me. A little bit quiet. Maybe speak up a bit.
Okay, I'll put my speakers up a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah. My apologies for the wait. I'm just I'm looking for my slides. What have I done with them?
Don't worry, I could put that for you if you'd rather.
Yes, but it's probably easier. I have got them here. Here we go.
Okay, you go ahead.
So it's taking a little bit of time to load.
Are you able to share screen?
I am. I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint to download. Maybe it would be easier if you just show the PowerPoint.
Okay, let's see if I
So
can share screen and I'll get
people from having to wait here.
Okay, so if I
Oh,
tell me when
here
to change
Yes,
change slides.
I
and you
recognize
speak.
that person. Okay. Great. Okay, so hello everyone. So my name's Jonathan. I'm the head of secondary at Hastings School in Madrid. We've got an all-through school, and we're part of a wider group called Cognita. Thanks. Right, so a little outline. So what I'm going to talk about is quite specific, I think. I'm just going to talk about a couple of successes that we had, and hopefully that will help people as we are not out of this yet, and we're all still struggling with either lockdown or blended learning of one way or another. So just going back now, almost a year now, incredibly, is that we had the very sudden lockdown in Madrid here, when we just heard from Italy, of course, where things were you know, just a few weeks ahead of us, but still for some reason we didn't quite see it coming. And the Madrid government decided to close the schools 4 days earlier than the Spanish government. So we really only had 1 day in school. And then that was it. We were told no one in school anymore. And I think for us, especially with what I'm going to talk about, this artificial intelligence platform, is that the Easter holiday lockdown was quite a big deal for us, because here, of course, our children were not allowed to leave their home at all. And being in Madrid, most of our children live in apartments. So that was quite a challenge for our parents and their worries about what was going to happen during that holiday. And in September 2020, we really moved forward because Cognita decided to invest in one-to-one devices. And obviously we had the huge challenge of hybrid learning, which I think has been even more difficult for our teachers, with most of the students in class and 3 or 4 at home. And so we really started to use the platform Century Tech. I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, all the way in March, but slightly more targeted now. Thank you. Right, so one of the things I was asked to talk a little bit about is how did we keep our students and our parents engaged, you know, following this very rapid transition to online learning. So one of the things we did with our students, which worked really well, we did these 2 weekly surveys. Our main platform is Microsoft, and so the forms on there works really easily. I'm sure it does the same for other platforms as well, but just finding out how they were feeling, seeing that overall they were feeling quite well, but then being able to pick up the ones that we were a bit worried about, and our pastoral teams would do these follow-ups all the time. We also continued our assembly straight away, and we did just continue with our curriculum. So we didn't change anything except that we introduced a couple more PE lessons per week up to the age of 11, year 11, not so much with the sixth form, but we took one of our sort of lengua lessons away, and our PSHE was replaced by more sort of proactive PE lessons there. And then with our parents, we did the same. We alternated the weeks. We did these very quick little 3-minute surveys with our parents to see how they were feeling. We had lots of online parent meetings from the start. So sort of like the parent evenings, as we used to call them, which are now the online parent meetings, which work very well. And then regular online seminars just to talk about you know, last year as it is this year in the UK, with the constant changes of, are we going to have exams? Are we not going to have exams? How are they going to get grades, etc. So just keeping them informed all the time. Thank you. So in terms of keeping our staff engaged, that was obviously a challenge. You know, in an international school, a lot of our staff will be, you know, on their own in their flats necessarily, and coming to Madrid for, you know, a buzzing nightlife and lots of activities to do outside of their homes. So we really set up a rota very quickly as a leadership team to make sure that we all had regular one-to-ones with individuals all the way through. Of course, getting used to a new platform so quickly was quite a challenge. So we had these weekly training sessions with staff, which were led by staff who were just that little step ahead of everyone else. But I think what worked the best for us, looking at our surveys from last week, was one-to-one drop-in sessions for training. So just having a couple of dedicated people who said, yes, come to me if you've got any issues. And they appreciated that the most, rather than working in groups. And then what we quite liked was the weekly lockdown bulletin. So anyone was sending in pictures, quizzes, different things for people to do. And that came out every Friday. Thank you. So we had a couple of platforms I really want to focus on now. So we had Microsoft Teams, which, you know, works very well. But you know, working with Zoom today seems to be very similar and seems to be working very well too. But we did the video conferencing in every lesson right from the beginning. We used forms for, you know, little checks for understanding, pretty straightforward, basic stuff, assignments for homework. But the challenge for us was Class Notebook. That's taken a little bit of time. And if I'm honest, it's still something that we're working on now. It's so different for teachers to use that, but we have kept using it even though we're back in school. And Madrid is pretty much open as normal and has been since September. But then the artificial intelligence platform that we used is called Century Tech, and we used it from year 7 to 11. But actually, sorry, I just noticed that in my slide, I say this because I'm head of secondary, but actually we used it in primary school as well, although we took us a little bit longer to get used to it in primary school. But in year 7 to 11, we used it straight away in March as it became available. And for us, I think the big push was during the Easter holiday. So we had our parents building up. We had 4 weeks of reasonably successful online learning. And our parents were starting to say to us, yes, but what are we going to do during Easter? And I made it quite clear that I wasn't willing for our staff to keep teaching during that time because they had gone through the biggest transformation that they've ever seen. You know, you've heard plenty of this about, well, we've all gone through it now, but it was something I felt quite strongly about. And I'm in a private school, of course, the parents do feel they can push that a little bit more, maybe than in the state schools that I'm used to back in the UK. But still, we kept our foot down. We said, no, but we'll find something for you. And actually, what we found is that this artificial intelligence platform, we launched it. I used the last 2 days of term to just do assembly after assembly after assembly, giving their logins, having some training, and then doing a seminar for parents as well. So they were aware of how it worked. And I told every student quite strongly that they had to do 3 hours every day. And although it didn't go down that well with the students, including my own children, who 2 of which are in secondary, and said, Dad, you're really going to make us feel very popular here in the school. This was our first year in Madrid. But actually, the parents were incredibly grateful, and the students did continue. I think once they started seeing that this platform is very easy to use and actually very good. I'll talk to you a little bit more about it in a minute. It was very successful, and our usage, as you'll see in a minute, during those 2 weeks was incredible. And then what happened with these artificial intelligence platforms, as you know, the key is to get the platform to get to know each child. So we found it much easier to launch this with our teachers after the Easter holiday, because we said, look at the information about our children in there as well. Look what it knows, what information it brings forward, or what questions it asks the students already, having done, you know, most students will have done, so 3 hours a day, they will have done about 40 hours or so on the platform before we actually launched it with staff. So all we had to do was ask our heads of department to just sort out the curriculum bit in there. Thank you. So this is what the platform looks like, Century. It's very easy to use. And at the top, you can see these little nuggets, which are like mini lessons. And one of the things I haven't mentioned before is teacher well-being and you know, sometimes reducing that workload. And that's something that this is very strong at. You can also see it sets assignments a bit like in Microsoft, but it's not something you have to necessarily do. These nuggets, these little mini lessons, is something that either the teacher pushes forward or the artificial intelligence platform itself suggests after getting to know the students with some of their diagnostic assessments at the beginning. Thank you. And so every little nugget, it's so easy to use. It has a little mini lesson. So you can see here, there's either a little slideshow or there is a short video. And, you know, the students just listen to it. Actually, you find that a lot of the time the students don't listen to it, try the little assessment at the end, and then find, oh, maybe I should have listened and go back to it and score a lot better. Which is really good. So on the next slide, you'll see what that might look like for the students. So they'll get a simple little assessment. And again, so if you could just move to the next, yeah, brilliant. So, you know, very simple, always multiple choice questions or sometimes slightly longer questions. And it gives them a score at the end of their assessment. And then they can choose to retry it. The questions will be slightly different every time. So that they get a different sort of feel, either mixed up or completely different. And so it's not a repetitive thing. And some of the parents have asked me, well, why don't we get told there and then, you know, what they did wrong and what the right answer was? But I think, you know, the research shows, and that's what this platform, what Century uses, is this idea that you that if you get instant feedback and you get told, you're not going to be curious enough to find out what you've done wrong. And actually, it's much better to go back to the learning, watch the video again, and then just get a better score next time round. Thank you. Okay, and so as a parent, and you know, it may sound a little bit like, well, you know, this has worked quite well for you in school as a head of secretary. You managed to get parents to engage with it, but I am here as a parent as well. I've got 4 children, and all 4 of them, 2 in secondary, 2 in primary, use this platform extensively at home. And as a parent, I find it really easy to engage with my children about their learning. Not so difficult maybe with the little ones, but with the older ones, it's always a bit more difficult. Well, how was your day at school? How was your math? Yes. But here, actually, what you find is that you've got a way of opening that conversation. And I think even for us in education, it's hard. For parents who are not in education, they find it particularly hard. So I highlighted this to our parents as a really good way of going to the students' dashboard and then finding out what their strengths are, the areas for improvement, stretching myself and focus to improve. So I just cut off the slide a little bit there, but those 4 boxes are very good. Obviously, they could look at the scores and things, but I said to the parents, don't worry too much about those. Worry more about, you know, just opening a conversation and saying, well, what about these multiplication, division, the worded questions there? What's going on there? And maybe do a nugget together. And that's still what I do now with my youngest, who's in year 3. I sit next to him when he's doing this, you know, work on Century, and I try my best not to give him the answers, because I know if I give him the answers, then the artificial platform will think that he knows the answers, and then that will skew things a little bit. But just being there and just seeing how they answer it, and going back to this dashboard all the time is particularly useful. So our parents, you know, the feedback's been really, really strong about this. And I think this is one of the key aspects that is easy to talk about with the child. And then for the teachers, of course, but to be fair, we didn't do this for quite some time with the teachers. You know, we just heard about, you know, how overloaded and overwhelmed our teachers were, and we really didn't want to say, right, you've just learned how to you've just learn how to use Microsoft, which you never used before, and here's another platform. So we did wait for a little bit, but once we started training a few key people, it was quite clear that they found this incredibly useful. So you can look up your class, and this is, you know, similar to, I suppose, other platforms, but it does give you, again, that little box you can see, which is called interventions, which sort of ranks your students there and says, right, so have a look at that group of students, this group of students, and you might then consider what nugget to bring forward the next time round. So teachers have found this really useful. It was just making sure that I didn't really launch it too quickly for them not to feel too overwhelmed. And now I've left it with, we're a growing school, and we've appointed sort of seconds in the bigger departments, English, science, and math, which this applies to. And they have been given responsibility and fantastic training to take this forward. So they are the ones drip feeding this to the teachers, but they are also inputting the information in terms of curriculum, what nuggets, etc. Thank you. sorry, if I can just go back 1 second. In an international school, the majority of our students are Spanish. I'd say it's, well, I should really know this. I think it's somewhere between 85 and 90% in most year groups. And so for them, the acquisition of the English language is a little bit more tricky and sometimes takes a little bit longer. And what we found with this, that it really goes down into the detail of giving them feedback on their language skills. I don't know if it's just my experience, but compared to primary, where I find that our students get a lot of feedback about their language, in secondary, a lot of our English teachers are very interested in literature, and the language doesn't always get quite as much feedback as it could. And I've said to them, look, this is a way of making sure that the student does get the feedback without you having to lift a finger. All you have to do is sort of maybe decide on the next nuggets or so, but this as homework, or even as we do in English now in year 7, 8 and 9, 1 hour a fortnight is just going on to Century has worked really, really well for our students. It's little, and even for my children, I think about my 2 secondary ones who are now in year 9 and 11, just little things, you know, little grammatical errors that they made that was picked up there that the teacher might not always, well, English teachers have got such a hard job marking so much work, and this just really helps them hugely with their workload. So I did see a question pop up there. I'll come back to it in a minute when I've got my box open. It was about the curriculum. Just highlighting that for student for leadership, it's very useful as well, and we can see our sort of aims, and it reflects the sort of things we've been doing in the school. You can see there that Easter boost that we had right at the start, but more interestingly for me, that there was a bit of a lull in September. Ironically, not so much in August, because students towards the end of August remembered maybe my letter. No, I sent a reminder, I think, saying, remember, I'm expecting you to do this. And they're very good like that. And the parents are very, you know, very, very positive there. But then in September, there was a bit of a lull where we retrained our seconds in departments, and now they've taken this on, and that's gone up again. So it's funny how it reflects, you know, what you do as a leadership team, you know, in this data here. Thank you. And what's really easy about it is I constantly email parents and said, wow, look, you know, 40,000 misconceptions identified and recommendations made. There were so many questions answered, and really big amounts. And then I could also, I always rewarded the top, it was a top 20% I wrote to, and then the top 25 students for each subject as well. And now I wrote to them regularly. That was already during the Easter holidays, also during the summer holidays. Just, you know, I had to go to in sort of mid-August, which maybe helped to boost that a little bit there. And then again in September. Now I'm leaving it more up to departments to do that sort of thing. Thank you. So, yeah, so I think just a quick summary there of you know, an artificial intelligence platform that really worked for us. I mean, Century's been brilliant. It started with independent use. It was just having that opportunity to launch that during that Easter holiday. The responsibility holders then worked really well. And what I should have mentioned is that we included we did training with the support department from the beginning, because a student will not, you can set up your classes as your normal classes, but you can also set up a support group. Obviously the student will not know this, but then the nuggets that they get will be slightly different and will be adapted to their needs. And that's been something really powerful for our support department, which wasn't able to work quite as well with the students during lockdown, but they just fed them nuggets without the student knowing them. So for them, that became very beneficial. And now we're at a stage where, luckily, this is part of our sort of what's been called a digital backpack from our school. And yeah, so we've been able to keep using it. And then just the last slide. Now, if you see, I was going to make a joke about family resemblance, but I'm not going to. I'll be honest, this is my child, but I didn't prompt it to. This is quite a long time ago. I think this was back in April. I'm not sure I'd managed to get him to do that again. But he, yeah, I just had asked him, just summarize a little bit what you say. And like I said, I'm here as a head of secondary. It's been brilliant, but I'm also here as a parent. Oh, he's changed a lot. Yeah. Yes, go ahead. I can't hear the sound. I'm not sure if others can. I don't think that's working, the sound there. Okay, well, never mind. I'm sure it will be available later and you can play if you so wish. But it is just interesting, of course. I'm talking for ages here, and just to hear a child speak about it. And it's always easier doing my own children, because then I don't have to worry about permissions and any of this sort of thing you have to worry about. That's really the end of my talk. I hope you found it useful. Now, I did see a few questions pop up. And another's actually got a hand up there, I think.
No, yeah, I'm not sure if there's many in the chat. If anyone has any questions, I know Jonathan isn't going to be able to stay. So if anyone would want any specific questions for him now, would you like to put it in the chat? Otherwise, Jonathan, maybe they can follow up on Facebook later, because I say with 4 children on your hands and parents' evenings for you, I think you're busy, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm in between 2 parents' evening. I finished one before here. Now I've got just the 2 primary ones, so that's just one meeting. That's not too bad. But they start quite. Just checking. They start relatively soon. But I did see one hand up though, I thought.
Here's the person with a hand up. Would you like to write it in the chat and we can catch it for you? Otherwise, we can send it later, Jonathan, if you like.
Yeah.
You need to shoot
Okay. Well, then
and the video itself too will be played. Hopefully, we'll play louder when it's on the recording.
All the permissions that you need there. But just about the curriculum, I think the question was about curriculum, and I've picked something up quickly. It does say yes, it's year 3 to 11, but actually, what we found very useful with a lot of students joining us in the 6th form in the international school, not having done GCSE, they do have these bridging courses. For our students, but the ones who were completely new to the British system, we told them, no, go ahead and do the GCSE nuggets, and that was really useful for us as an international school. Worked brilliantly, but they do have these transition courses as well in year 11 into 12.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, great.
For that.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to Chetna, because I know it's very late, because Chetna's wonderfully stayed on till the end, but she's also in India. So over to you, Chetna.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Jonathan, I think everybody who presented before me was excellent. And I hope I'm able to keep your expectations. Yeah, so that is who I am. I represent India here as a Director of Academic and International Relations in JCT International School, which is in the Punjab, Ludhiana to be specific. And we have a primary school which follows more of a Montessori curriculum. And I'm also a co-founder of Skills Reform Private Limited, where we work for the skill development of right from the primary years to the working professionals. And luckily, I have been appointed as Global Juror for Sustainable Development Goals, and we heavily endorse sustainable development goals in our school. And this pandemic has given me an opportunity to explore the other side of which is a psychologist. So I'm an NCRT, which is a national body in India, and GCC UCLA certified career counselor as well. So, and for my upskilling during this particular adversity in 2020, I have attained a certification as a life coach from UK. So that is what about me. I think this is stuck somewhere. Yeah, sorry. So just talking about my school, which is we follow the motto of nurturing learners and leaders with heart. And our mission is to prepare students for success in 21st century. And we have already landed into 21st century. So the idea is to engage them in rigorous and relevant learning opportunities. And it was founded in 2016 in an independent co-educational school and up to grade 5, that is what. And philosophy of education for us is a well-balanced and inclusive curriculum, inspired mentoring, holistic education, and a strong sense of community, which has come out so well during this adversity in last 11 months. And we are hoping that by February next week, we reopen the school for the students. So that will be the great thing which will happen with us. I could play this. This is a little video which I wish to play. I don't know. I'm able to. If you could just stay with me for a moment.
Hi,
Are you able
I
to
am
hear?
Doraemon. Hello, I am Doodle. We are here to invite all the parents to a very fun-filled, innovative workshop, Learning with the Cartoons. And when is it? It's on 31st October at 6 p.m. See you then. Ta-ding!
Just a second. So this is what happened somewhere in October when we were brainstorming about how to make the education more interacting for everyone. And so we invited all the stakeholders, starting from the parents, the students also, and you would be surprised to know that this is the idea of my primary year students, that why not to use Peppa Pig and Doraemon or any other cartoon, which is like very famous amongst them, to deliver the lessons. And you would be surprised to know. And then when you see this 21st century transition, why I mentioned this, that before COVID we were all teacher dependent, though it was a child centered education, but still we were teacher dependent, we were school dependent, we were resources dependent, that from where what will be available to us. Now what happened during this last 11 months is that students have become digitally aware, the parents have become more aware about what platform to use, how we have to use the forums, and which one they are comfortable with. And of course our learners have become self-directed. When I say self-directed, so they have chosen actually the new curriculum for themselves, and there is a lesson plan which I could not actually integrate here to show you, that they have the weekly goals to be achieved, where they write on their own, they post pictures on that. So we use Jamboard for that from Google, G Suite, and then so they can post that post-its where they can share their information about that, what do they want to do in this week, and that is how the complete curriculum is being designed by them, and the teachers improvise it as per their need, because these are all primary year students, so we don't have that pressure of the exams. So it was basically that you have to have a community based learning, and the basic minimum level of learning should be achieved for these students. And I would say wonderfully they have done with the parents engagement. So somewhere up to an extent they have become independent learners for me. So this is what has happened already, the 21st century transition for them, which is which we might not have expected so fast, but yeah, this happened with them. Now, coming to the strategic approaches to student accessibility engagement, I would just highlight few here, what could stand out for us, and maybe it resonates with you people who are listening here. So active learning strategies, and this is all based on the humanistic approach which we use for the students. So we took a weekly meetings with the parents, that how they, because these are very young children which I'm talking about, for primary years to up to 5. So we have to take them into confidence that what do they want to learn and how much time they want to spend, because there was this policy from the government that they should not spend much time, screen time on. So that's where, so we decided that we'll go for alternate days as a curriculum, and so the screen time will be only on alternate days, and then the rest of the 3 days they will be doing some activity with the family and within their community online, so which is like kind of an asynchronous strategies which we use. Now when coming to responsive classroom, this was beautiful thing which we did with the students, that they have to decide, because it's very difficult to make those young children sit in the class even for 40 minutes. So what we did was we used the hand puppets and cartoons to make them and identify that, okay, this is the rule for the class. I wish I could have shown you the video here, but because of the privacy rules, we are not able to show that. So responsive classroom becomes that they have designed their own rules, that when a child would stop speaking, when the child has to speak, and what is the gesture. So rather than using their hand gestures, they were using their emojis which they were wearing as hand puppets. So that is what they started to use the rules on their own, and then anyone in the classroom, suppose they are not, so they decided that what could be the way to rectify that if they have somebody has broken the rule. And that goes with the teachers also. So a teacher has to be a participative person, and imagine the kind of fun moment which were created, and we recorded that also. So the teachers were very happy that, okay, this is how the students are actually owing the learning for themselves. That, okay, this is what they want to learn, how they want to learn. And the 40 minutes on every alternate day was becoming like a party for them. That is what happened. Yes, teachers have to prepare a lot, and they have done so. Everything was on G Suite for them. So it was like a week advance, their lesson plans were ready. So whenever the students were submitting their lesson plans, so they were actually, I mean, the goals which they decided. So if suppose they want to learn about family, or they want to learn something about animals, or they want to learn something in mathematics, that how mathematics relate to certain subject, other subjects. So that is what they do. So the learner readiness was taken care of. This curriculum was given to them in advance, that, okay, this is what they're going to study. So the parents are also prepared. Any kind of a material which is, or the resources which were required, we tried to use most of the material from the home, because during complete lockdown there were less of resources, and not every parent was able to afford what. So it was more of a local material which we came out with. And also most of the things were in either in kitchen or maybe in your stationery items, those were used. So it was easy for parents also to easy on their pockets as well, and easy for them to approach or get the things for themselves. Then coming to synchronous strategies, yes, there were spider web discussions. So here what happened in the discussion is, if so we try to give them the basic life skills also. So if suppose there is something happening related to the school, so the students were discussing about that, how should the school reopen. This is what I wanted to bring on the board here. So they came out with that, okay, this should be the strategy. So there was a cross discussion happening around on the chats with the students, and the parents were also part of it, that, okay, what do they think on it. And similarly, the think, pair, share became think, write, share, where they use the Jamboard and they could put their emojis, and they were ready with all the kind of virtual tools with them, whichever they were comfortable with. So the variety of tools were used as per their convenience with the parents. And I would say that WhatsApp became the kind of a learning, education tool for them, especially with the parents, because they could share what their child has done. The outcome of every activity was shown through the video, or maybe the pictures that they are doing this. So collaborative activities, a lot of activities. We had a virtual tour with some of the beautiful places in India and internationally also, where the students could not visit otherwise. Sometime because of the time, sometime because of the cost, which was pre-COVID. But in post-COVID, what happened was, you can always take a virtual tour to any place. And with the AI, this has become so beautiful that students can actually feel the simulation. So their learning became very outcome driven, and the students could actually experience all those learning. That's what happened. Now, asynchronous strategies, which we use for using digital tools, I would say that we created a complete library of digital tools. So whichever they want to pick up, so that was shared with the parents. And there were almost like thousands of resources, starting from Canva to Flipgrid to others one which are available to us. So every subject would have even multiple tools, so the students can pick up their own convenience, that which one they want to use. But the ultimate outcome was that, okay, the students have to come out with some kind of a presentation, which could be paper pen presentation, or which could be a picture presentation, or something with using digital tools. So this became the way of assessing them. Then embracing learning styles, I would say the major achievement for us was that we could cater to the learning styles of the learners. Specifically, when you say that this is kinesthetic, so teachers have done the wonderful job of creating that kind of a lesson plan for them, including children in their learning. And then they decide, okay, I can learn through audio, I can learn through video, I can learn through visuals, or I can learn through kinesthetic. Maybe they have to do that activity to feel that, to have that comfortable feeling of that, okay, this is what the outcome of maybe a science experiment would be. Of course, taking the necessary precautions for them, definitely. And this one is my favorite, pace and pause. So this is a kind of a reflective practices which we give to almost every students in a week, once in a week. So that was on the weekend, where whatever they have learned, whatever curriculum they have planned for themselves. So how do they want to pace, whether the pace was good for them, whether they enjoyed it, or they want to slow down, or they want to go faster, or maybe they have moved one level up than before, and pause with the reflective practices. Now, not every student would be a writer, I understand that. So what we did, we give them the freedom of using the communication mode, whichever they want to. So somebody could record the video, maybe stammering, stuttering, whatever, but then they were comfortable. And slowly what happened was, during this 11 months, I think each child has become visibly presentable. So they know how to face the camera, they know how to use the camera, and sometimes they're helping the teachers also to use it. So that is what, and even when I'm talking about this, so there are students, some who are differently abled. So, but then they also became very expressive on that, what do they want to, and how do they want to present their work. So that is what happened. And these are, I think this is what accessibility would be in the next, this also. So you can see that the students doing yoga in the morning. Now, setting a routine was very, very important for all of us. And it took us almost 2 months, because bringing them on board from the holiday mode to a study mode, because the government has given the directive that you are not supposed to call any student in the school. But then slowly they started learning that, okay, it's boring to sit all the time at home and watch TV or do something, do nothing. So then they started doing these activities, and you could see, so there, some of them have adopted a plant also. So we did that activity, and some of them have designed their own healthy play, that what kind of so this is what happened here, is that they were able to communicate better to their parents. Maybe they were in lack of words, but through pictures they were able to communicate to the parents also and teachers also, that okay, this is how they feel, how they can emote. So their social emotional learning aspect was also taken care of by using the variety of tools here. And if you could see that they became very, very environment sensitive, I would say, because they could see that. So one of my student actually, I mean, we meet fortnightly as a director with the students to feel that whatever is going on is right or not, and to get the feedback from parents. So one of the students actually mentioned that I want to become a sweeper, because they're the warriors who have been helping day in, day out, in spite of the lockdown. And I was surprised that the parents were also very supportive of the fact that the child is thinking on those lines, because he has seen this particular thing going on from day in, day out. So that is what, so they become environmentally responsible also. And some of them actually wrote little poetry using those rhyming words for them. So that is what is the beautiful thing which happened, that they became self-directed, they become like, okay, more sensitive about it. Now, coming to the 21st century learner, we were looking for something, I mean, some students who wanted to make them a communicator. So definitely with the kind of learning has been taking place from last 11 months, they have become a beautiful communicator. So they have all become the orators, I would say. Then globally aware, because the global connection which happened, I don't think so this would have been possible in pre-COVID era. I would call it pre-COVID era, because it took a lot of time and effort for people to plan anything, even if it is online. But now it has become the kind of a mandate for everybody. So you could connect with everyone around the world, and then you can know about. So we did a project on flowers with one of the country, and then the students could learn that, okay, this is, and the flowers were easily available in their garden, so they could actually exchange and they can feel, emote and touch the things. So this tactile learning happened. Then innovator, yes, I would say that the students could actually, the local festivities we celebrate in India are many, I mean multiple activities. So but they became so innovative in their ideas, that okay, how we can celebrate, rather than just wearing a dress, let's do some kind of activity which is community based services. And this is just that the teachers have been helping them to do it, rather than giving them the directives. The students came out with the idea, so they have written letters to the postman, or they have written letter to the doctors, and then they have sent beautiful messages with the pictures that, okay, this is how I feel you as a warrior. And So they've also become civically engaged, I would say. So, and this is what I feel as a responsible educator, that this is what we all need to do with the students, rather than just looking at the curriculum, rather than just looking at the subjects. What is more important is these parts of their personality, especially the financial and economically literate. Now this happened that they actually budgeted their monthly expenses. So this, I'm talking about grade 3 students. So we had a session with them that, okay, this is how you just have to jot down that what all budgeting you can do, and what are your expenditures and what are your earnings. So, and we told the parents that for a week, what you have to do is just whatever act they are doing, a kindness or maybe some kind of a help in the kitchen or in cleanliness or anywhere. So you should give them some kind of a reward. Now, reward could be financial, so that they can have a pocket money kind of a thing. And then we give them an activity that how would you like to spend that? And where would you like to spend it? So this all became so engaging for them that it was not like that you are learning a curriculum, but you are learning something which is making you kind of having all the life skills which you require to survive in this world. Then, of course, a critical thinker. So there were a lot of activities which students have done. So what I would like to, because we are going to reopen in February, so the idea for us, so I'll just touch upon that what we have planned if we are going for in-person classes for them. So promoting behaviors that reduces COVID-19 spread, that is very, very important as an administrators to think of. So what we have done is that we have sent some literature and we have done some acts, and especially our learning with cartoons, has been a very powerful medium for us to convey anything, because students keep watching that again and again, and it's kinds of a reinforcement for them to see that, okay, this is what they are supposed to do. So even if it is a small activity like hand washing or keeping a distance, so the students participate in it and they actually are learning. It's kind of a hands-on experience which is happening from them. So, and of course the parents have been a integral part of all this what we have been doing. Without them, I think we would not have been able to successfully retain our students in the school as well, and to have this kind of experience which is very, very innovative and very, very enlightening for all of us. So that's what from my side, and what I would like to end with a quote here, which I think goes with everyone, which will resonate with all of us, which is, we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges, and let's embrace and move forward. And looking forward to the reopening of the school. And I wish every one of us who's attending this a best of luck. And we hope that we are back in school with all our energy and enthusiasm. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share a small part of our curriculum, a school from India. So namaskar.
Oh, Chetna, that is amazing. I think that is wonderful. I think that's a great finish, isn't it? That image on there is amazing of your last slide, because I think it actually sums up, doesn't it? They're learning new skills. We're saying, oh, they've missed this, they've missed that. Their education is lacking, but what they've missed is shown to be less important anyway. And the skills they are learning are the skills for the future. And I think that is amazing. And thanks for sharing that. I can't see any actual specific questions at the moment. If anyone has any, put them in the chat. I am aware it's getting late in the afternoon, but it's been fantastic. There's a lot to take in there. Like you say, there are recordings that are going to be shared, and these conversations can carry on Facebook. And we will be doing this again next month. So hopefully you'll all join us again then. So if there are no any particular questions, I'll probably say goodbye. Give you 2 minutes for questions if anyone has any. Otherwise, I'll say thank you all for joining us and see you again soon. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye for now. Bye, everyone.